Us. And here on BBC Radio London, in a moment, we're going to be talking to Noddy Holder, no less. Noddy's been out there sitting in the reception for a little bit. He's got a splendid shirt on, I can tell you that. And he's going to be joined by Richard Loncraine, who was the director of Slade In Flame, which is a film that they made back in 1975. And it's basically been revived. There's a new print of it. It's being shown at BFI cinemas in London and across the country. And we're going to get them in to talk about it. So we asked Noddy to pick a track, a Slade track, obviously, for us to play, and he chose this one. This is Slade, and How Does It Feel?
How does it feel running around, round, round? How does it feel watching from upside down? 'Cause many years from now there will be new sensations and new temptations. How does it feel? How does it feel right at the start? And how does it feel when you are thrown apart? 'Cause many years from now there will be new relations and new frustrations. How does it feel? Oh, oh. Do you know what it's like to be searching in your own time? All you're attempting, experimenting, all on the climb. Do you know what it's like to be searching and suddenly find all your illusion, all your confusion, all left behind? How does it feel turning away? How does it feel facing another day? 'Cause many years from now there will be new horizons, new horizons.
just had an email from Kim, one of my listeners, saying, I love How Does It Feel? Brilliant song. One of the most underrated tracks ever. And I think some of the gentlemen sitting opposite me agree.
I do.
Well, when that record came out in 1975, it was our first record in 5 years that hadn't made even the top three.
Wow.
Because nobody rated it. It wasn't what they expected from
typical,
Slade.
Is it really?
No, it's not what the fans wanted from Slade. Not really what the record company wanted from Slade. But they had to put it out as a single because it was the theme tune to the movie, Flame.
And yeah, exactly. That's why you're here. Well, just to check, we just heard there from Noddy Holder and just a little touch of Richard Loncraine. Noddy, of course, from Slade, and therefore one of the stars of the film Slade In Flame, and Richard, the man who directed it. It's one of those movies that I think its reputation slowly has just grown and grown and grown, hasn't it, over the years?
Yeah, we're very lucky. I mean, we heard a couple of days ago, remarkably, that it's going out in 82 cinemas.
Wow.
And only went out in 45 when it first came out 50 years ago. So there are not many movies. Mind you, that's not a big release then, but no, it's wonderful. It's matured like an old bottle of wine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, who would have thought 50 years on that the movie would get this recognition after all this time? Because when he come out, Richard will agree, the critical's acclaim was not that good.
No.
Few of the critics were very good to it. The fans turned their back on it, really, because when they went to see it, it wasn't what they wanted from Slade. They wanted a comedy, slapstick, speeded up film type of movie with comedy antics.
And you delivered quite a serious kind of searing look at the kind of the music business, if you like.
We did. It was quite gritty, but I think it was. Yeah, I mean, I think I managed to finish your career off, didn't I? You've never been nasty about it, but I think you should.
Well, it was weird because at the premiere here in London, we had the fans sitting downstairs and the business, DJs, press, TV people, record company people upstairs. They reacted totally different at the premiere. And I remember going into Top of the Pops 2 days later, whatever track we had out, and we were on the sound stage in the afternoon rehearsing, and the director came down to the sound stage, made a beeline for Dave Hill and said to Dave, "You've made a great movie there, but it's going to kill your career."
Really?
And Dave was really panicking because that's what Dave thought in his head also. I didn't think that way. I thought it was a great film. So did Jimmy think it was a good film. But Dave, he just was telling Dave actually what he thought himself.
Where did the script come from? Talk us through the process.
David Putnam at Good Times and Sandy Lieberson produced it. They'd made Stardust and That'll Be the Day.
Yeah.
And I think Chas Chandler, who was your manager at the time, wanted to make a movie like all big bands did. And I think the original, there was going to be a slapstick comedic version, wasn't there?
There was going to be a version from the 50s. There was a TV series, a sci-fi series called The Quatermass Experiment.
Yes, I remember it. Well, I know about it.
Well, we had a guy who worked for us called John Steele. He produced a script for the Quite a Mess version, which was a spoof. But the problem with that was that a Triffid ate Dave Hill in the first 15 minutes.
So it was a good script then.
Yeah, and then the first 15 minutes. And all the rest of the movie, his hair was just hanging out the Triffid's mouth, which sounds like good comedy. And it probably could have been good, but Dave was having none of that, of course. So obviously Richard and Andrew Birkin came up with, a sort of... it's not what you'd call a documentary on a band, but it's it's a social commentary on a band.
We travelled with you around the States for about 4 or 5 weeks, which was quite an eye-opener. I was remembering a story. Somebody asked me last night, we had a screening about what it was like, and I said, well, it was up and down. Some places were pretty rough, and I remember staying in an old hotel, a Hilton, I think, in Chicago, and there's a party going upstairs after the show, and I go up in the elevator, and there's 2 women there wearing fur coats and chatting about the breakfast and what they're going to cook their husbands and nursery school. And one of them suddenly turns to me and says to me, "Would you like to see my body?" And she opens her fur coat and she's completely naked. And I go, "Well, thank you." And she puts her fur coat back, carries on talking about nursery school. So it was an interesting hotel. There was quite a lot of that on the road.
It did open their eyes. It opened Richard and Andrew's eyes of what rock and roll lifestyle was like.
Did we travel in crew buses? I'm trying to remember.
No, I think we did a lot of planes. We didn't usually travel in buses because it's too far between venues in those days.
I hired one once. They can be pretty nasty. Remember, an old crew bus is not something I want to spend too much time on.
As you said, when it came out, there was kind of split responses. There were some very good critics, though, weren't there?
Barry Norman was great.
Yeah, he was good.
He was the main BBC critic at the time.
There was one critic who I can't track down, because if I did, I would have to probably physically attack him now. He actually said, "I haven't bothered to see this movie because I knew it would be shit."
Oh, please don't swear.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I can only apologise for that language.
I apologise. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, we won't have any more of that.
No, you certainly won't. I didn't know that was swearing.
Well, it certainly is.
Okay.
Okay, Noddy, how do you feel about the film now, all these years later?
I still like it. It was strange last night watching it on a big screen again, because with the audience there as well, there was like about 500 people there last night in the BFI cinema. Yeah. And when you hear the reaction around you, totally different to watching it on your own. It was just great. But it's far more nitty-gritty than I remembered it.
Is it?
Yeah. Even what I remember 50 years ago. And that, I thought that was nitty-gritty. But seeing it again, I thought, whoa, this is heavy duty, you know, and it's a good look at what goes on beyond the rock business, even today, I would think.
Is it a new print and stuff, or what have they done?
Well, they couldn't find, sadly, the original negative has been lost forever. This happens to a lot of movies, if they're not major pictures. They managed to find one print, and then digitally they went through it and managed to pull it back. So it looked pretty good.
How's it looking, physically?
I thought pretty good. The dark stuff was a bit dark. Peter Hannon, the cameraman's still with us, and he was there last night, and he was a bit grumpy. No, it looks good. He did a wonderful job.
It's got a sharp look about it, but it hasn't lost its atmosphere. It's still got that atmosphere of the late 60s and the nitty-gritty northern life.
You said it's got a pretty good distribution. It's also out on every other form, isn't it? DVDs and Blu-rays and all of that.
It seems to be. BFI have done a wonderful job, and they just have got behind it. And it's wonderful to see a movie you made. 50. I was 28 years old or something when I made it.
Wow.
I'm a lot older than that now. 78 or something. Yeah, 78. So to see a film get received when it was kind of written off, really, I'm very, very proud to have been part of it.
Blu-ray comes out in the middle of May with a lot of added extras to it. So it'll be interesting for people who are into film, not just Slade fans, but into film generally.
There must be a new generation of fans who are interested in all of that.
Absolutely, and I think they're discovering it both from music being covered by newer acts since the 90s. I'll mention Oasis particularly, covered Come On Feel the Noise, so our back catalogue was regenerated there, which has carried on, which I think now will also carry on into the movie.
Because Ben said, why haven't Slade played the Legends slot at Glastonbury?
Well, I haven't been in the band since the 90s, so I don't think we would ever get back together. We certainly wouldn't be able to play with the ferocity that we did back in those days.
I can't do anything with ferocity.
No, exactly. So I've always said I don't really want to go back and reform the band because I'd rather stick with how I knew it in those days, and that's how I've always.
I think you're right. Does it ever work for bands coming back again?
I suppose some do if they want to do it as a money maker.
Yeah, but not emotionally.
It's not emotionally, and it's certainly never ever as good as it was when you first time around. It's different for people like the Stones and that have carried on.
They never stopped. I guess the Who is another one really in that period of time. Is there kind of a reappraisal due, do you think, of the whole kind of glam period? Because it seems to me for quite a while it was rather sort of dismissed as being dismissed silly clothes or silly music or whatever. Wasn't taken seriously.
I think it comes round every 5 years. There's a resurge on certainly some of the music. Trousers. Or everything, the fashion, the music, everything. There was some great records came out in that era, particularly what I would call pop rock records. There was some great songs, great production, and some of those songs still get people up on their feet dancing. and hold great memories for people.
Well, if you want to see what Slade were like back in 1975, that's when the film first came out, and it's back out again now. As you said, it's shown in cinemas across the country. There's a Blu-ray and a DVD, and you can get more. You can find out more and get tickets at bfi.org.uk. And we've been hearing about that from Noddy Holder and Richard Loncraine. Gentlemen, thank you both very, very much.
Thank you.